The morning light streamed through the blinds, coloring the Turners' kitchen amber. Isaac watched his wife working on breakfast, her slender fingers deftly slicing fresh fruit. Blair was always up before him, even on weekends. He admired the graceful curve of her neck, the smooth movements and the soft smile that appeared when she noticed his gaze. "Good morning, sleepyhead." Blair set a plate of French toast and a cup of coffee in front of him. "Plans for today?" "I need to stop by the Oak Street facility to check on the foundation." Isaac sipped his coffee. "And then I wanted to clean out the junk in the attic. How long can you put it off?" Blair froze for a moment, but quickly resumed his movements. "I could help you with the attic," she offered, trying to sound casual. "No need, you have a client today, that TV anchor woman." "Alice Parker," Blair nodded. "You're right, she's coming in at 2. She wants a complete makeover before the new season." Staunton wasn't a big town, but Blair Turner was a household name. Her downtown hair studio attracted customers from even neighboring communities. Her talent for transforming people had earned her a reputation as the best stylist in the area. Isaac was proud of his wife's success, although it sometimes hurt him that her fame in local circles overshadowed his accomplishments in the construction business. He'd grown up in a family where the man was the earner and the head, and here Blair was earning almost as much as he was. Their Victorian-style home in the historic Staunton neighborhood was the envy of friends and a symbol of the couple's success. 3 bedrooms, an office, a spacious kitchen where Blair loved to experiment with recipes, and a cozy backyard with a barbecue. They'd bought it 4 years ago, a year after they'd gotten married. "Your mom called yesterday," Blair said, sitting down across from her with a plate of fruit. "Asked if we were coming over for Thanksgiving." Isaac sighed. Blair's relationship with his family had always been strained. His parents, raised in a conservative community, had had a hard time accepting their son's choices. Not because of their skin color, they were black, but because of Blair's mannerisms, which seemed too refined, too unnatural. "It's like she's playing a role," Isaac's mother had once said. "I'll call her back," he answered. Blair nodded, not lifting his eyes from his plate. In 5 years of marriage, she'd learned to skirt the sharp edges. Every time the conversation turned to his family or her past before moving to Staunton, she deftly changed the subject. After finishing breakfast, Isaac kissed his wife and went to the construction site. His company was now building a new townhouse complex, the largest project of his career. But even amidst the hum of machinery and discussions with the foreman, his thoughts returned to Blair. He'd noticed a certain uneasiness in her lately, especially when the conversation touched on her life before they'd met. They had met at a fundraiser to support the local art school 6 years ago. Blair had just moved to Staunton and opened her studio. She had caught his eye immediately, not only by her beauty, but also by her special grace and confidence. That night, she'd told him she'd grown up in Chicago, studied hairdressing in New York, and then decided to start over in a quiet town. She spoke sparingly of her family, only that her parents were long dead and she had no other relatives. Returning home after work, Isaac went up to the attic. Among the old boxes of Christmas decorations, books, and clothes they planned to give to charity, he noticed a small chest he hadn't seen before. The chest was made of dark wood, with metal corners and a simple lock. The lock was not locked. Inside, Isaac found several old photo albums, documents, and some school awards. He opened the first album and froze. In the photos was a dark-skinned boy, about 8 or 10 years old, with a wide smile and lively eyes. Something about those eyes seemed familiar to Isaac. He turned a few more pages and came across a photo that made his heart skip a beat. The same boy, but slightly older, was standing next to an elderly woman. On the back of the photo was an inscription in faded ink. "Our son Brian, age 13. Brian? Blair had a brother, but she'd never mentioned him. And why did those pictures end up in her possession? Isaac continued flipping through the album. The boy was growing up in those pictures, turning into a teenager. The last pictures showed him around the age of 16 or 17, and the more Isaac looked, the more a strange feeling grew in him. Those eyes, that smile. There was something subtly familiar about them, something he saw every day. Isaac pulled out his phone and opened the latest selfies he'd taken with Blair last week during their dinner at the restaurant. He brought the photo on the screen up to the teenager's picture in the album and felt a chill go down inside. The same eyes, same high cheekbones, same shape of eyebrows. It couldn't be Blair's brother. It was Blair herself, before she was a woman. The world around Isaac seemed to stop. Scraps of memories flashed through his mind. How Blair never talked about her childhood, how she avoided talking about her family, how she tensed up when it came to talking about the past. Her strange reaction to the suggestion of having children, the lack of photos from her youth. He continued going through the contents of the trunk and found an old high school diploma in the name of Brian Williams, and medical records, with dates that matched the time Blair had supposedly studied in New York, paperwork for hormone therapy, surgical referrals. All this time he'd been married to a man who'd lied to him about the most fundamental thing of all, who he was, or her. His head was spinning. Isaac closed the trunk and went down to the living room, poured himself a whiskey, even though it was only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He never drank during the day, but right now he needed something to dull the emotions tearing at him. Anger, pain, betrayal, confusion. He tried to collect his thoughts. They'd been married for 5 years, slept in the same bed, made love, made plans for the future, and all that time Blair had kept from him that he'd been born a man. How was that possible? How could he not notice? Isaac felt nauseous. He took another drink of whiskey and tried to calm down. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe he was wrong. The sound of the front door opening snapped him out of his thoughts. Blair had returned from work. "Isaac?" she called out as she entered the living room. "Are you home already? I thought you'd be at the UN." She stopped talking when she saw the look on his face and the glass of whiskey in his hand. "What's wrong?" Her voice shook. Isaac didn't answer, just stared at her as if he were seeing her for the first time, searching her features for the boy in the photograph, and he found it. How could he be so blind? "Isaac, you're scaring me." Blair took a step toward him. "Who is Brian?" he asked quietly. Blair froze. The color drained from her face. She sank to the edge of the couch as if her legs refused to hold her up. "Where are you?" she began and then stopped. "You were in the attic. It wasn't a question." "Yes," Isaac answered. "And I found a very interesting chest of pictures of a boy named Brian, who looks remarkably like you." Blair covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered. "I've wanted to tell you many times, but I was afraid to—" "Afraid?" Isaac's voice rose. "Were you afraid to tell me that you were born a man? That our 5 years together were based on lies?" "Not a lie." Blair looked up at him with tears in his eyes. "I've always been me with you, the real me. Just because I was born in a different body doesn't make me less of a woman, less of your wife." Isaac laughed a bitter laugh. "Wife? I married a woman, Blair. A woman who could bear me children, who would be real." "I am real." Pain was in her voice. "Just different. And I love you, Isaac. I always have. How could you not tell me?" He slammed his glass down on the table. 5 years, Blair. 5 bloody years. "I tried to find the right moment," she whispered. "But at the beginning of our relationship, I was afraid you'd leave. And then it just got scarier. I know your views, your family. I know how you feel about these things." Isaac felt the rage growing inside. She knew, and she dragged him into this relationship anyway. Made him love him, Brian. "Go away!" He gritted his teeth. "Isaac, please, let's talk." Blair stood up and tried to walk toward him. "I'm still the same person you fell in love with." "I said leave," he repeated, clenching his fists. "I need time to think. Otherwise, I don't know what I'll do." She saw something in his eyes that made her pull back. Blair nodded, wiping away her tears. "I'll spend the night at Tyler's," she said quietly. "Call me when you're ready to talk." She went upstairs, packed a small bag, and left the house without another word. Isaac was left alone, with a bottle of whiskey and a picture of a boy named Brian. Memories of their life together with Blair flashed before his eyes, taking on a new, distorted meaning now. How could he not see? How could he not see the signs? Her reluctance to discuss the past, her lack of relatives, her strange tension when it came to children, her perfect figure, too perfect, as if deliberately designed, and her skill at transforming people. Now he understood where it came from. She was her own greatest creation. Isaac poured more whiskey. He felt cheated, betrayed, used. Everything he had believed in had turned out to be an illusion. His perfect wife, his love, his life, it was all built on a lie. He didn't sleep a wink that night, digesting the truth and trying to decide what to do next. But the more he thought, the more disgust and anger grew in him. The first rays of sunlight found Isaac sitting in front of his laptop. Eyes red from sleeplessness, feverishly scanned the screen as his fingers tapped on the keyboard. An empty whiskey bottle lay on the floor, and next to it was a photograph labeled "Our Son." He couldn't sleep. Thoughts of Blair kept him awake. He knew her real name now, Brian Williams. That was enough to start an investigation. Social media hadn't yielded much information. No accounts in Brian Williams' name that could be linked to Blair. But he did find old high school yearbooks from the online archives of a high school in Chicago. In one of the graduation photos from the 2010 year, he saw the same young man from the family snapshot. Tall, nondescript, with an unsure smile. Brian Williams, high school band, debate club. Nothing remarkable. No hint that this boy would one day be the woman with whom Isaac would tie his life. A search of medical records turned up nothing. They were protected by law. But on transgender forums, he found several posts from user Blair W., dated 8 or 9 years earlier. She wrote about her transition, about hormone therapy, about surgeries, described her fears and hopes. One post in particular sticks in the memory. Sometimes I think about how I can never be completely honest with the person I'm going to love. There will always be that fear of rejection, that secret that could ruin everything. She knew. Always knew she was deceiving him. Isaac turned to the page of a clinic in New York City that specialized in transgender transitions. Among the patient testimonials, he found a comment, "Dr. Klein changed my life. Thank you for helping me be myself. Blair W." The date was 7 years ago, a year before they met. It was all coming together. While he was building his business in Stonington, she was creating herself in New York. And then she'd come here, to a small town where no one knew her past, and started a new life. A life she'd involved him in without his consent. Isaac's phone vibrated with notifications. 5 missed calls from Blair. Several messages. "Please, let's talk. I'll explain. I love you." He muted the sound. By noon, after gathering everything he could find, Isaac drove to the office. Work was the only thing that could distract him from thoughts of his wife. But even amidst the blueprints and estimates, he kept seeing her face, and the face of that boy in the photograph. On his way home that evening, he made a detour and drove past Tyler Morris's house. Blair's car was parked out front. Isaac parked a few houses further away and just sat there, looking out the windows where he knew his wife was now. What is she telling Tyler? Is she laughing at his, Isaac's, naivete? Or is she crying over a broken marriage? Tyler had always been there for Blair since the beginning of their relationship. Now Isaac understood why. Tyler knew, probably knew from the beginning who Blair really was, helped her keep that secret. A memory flashed through his mind, their wedding day, Tyler making a toast. To Blair, the bravest woman I know, and to Isaac, who I hope is worthy of her. At the time, those words had seemed touching. Now they sounded like mockery. And at home, another blow awaited him. Checking the mail, he found an envelope from the fertility clinic addressed to Blair. Test results. She'd been tested for parenthood. Of course, the results had been negative. She could never conceive. But she continued to maintain that illusion, to lead him around by the nose. The rage and disgust he'd been holding back all day burst out. Isaac swept everything off the table with one hand. A broken framed photo of their wedding fell to the floor. He picked it up and took a long look at their happy faces, at her shining eyes, at her white dress. All lies. A house of cards built on deception. At the same time, in Tyler's living room, Blair sat with her arms wrapped around her knees. He found the pictures. Her voice was quiet, lifeless. Old photos and documents. I should have gotten rid of them long ago, but I couldn't. It was like a part of me was still clinging to the past. Tyler sat down next to her, putting a hand on her shoulder. "What did he say?" "He told me to leave, that he needed time to think." Blair wiped away her tears. I saw his eyes, Tyler. There was so much hate in them. He would never forgive me. Don't say that. Tyler tried to sound reassuring. Give him time to digest the information. It's a shock to him. I knew this would happen. Blair shook his head. I knew I couldn't hide the truth forever. But every time I was going to tell him, I imagined this exact reaction. And I kept quiet. You should have told him before the wedding, Tyler said softly. I know, she covered her face with her hands. But I was so afraid of losing him. He was the first person who made me feel real, complete. The first person who saw me as just a woman, no reservations. Because he didn't know the truth. Yeah, Blair grinned bitterly. And now I was paying the price. 5 years of happiness in exchange for, what? Hate? Divorce? Tyler poured her wine. You don't know for sure how he'll react in the end. Isaac loves you. Maybe love will be stronger than prejudice. You didn't see his face. Blair shook his head. It wasn't my husband. It was a stranger who looked at me with disgust. She took a sip of wine and added quietly, maybe I should leave. Start over somewhere else. Run away? Again? Tyler frowned. Blair, you've spent your whole life running away from your past. Maybe it's time to finally face it. She was silent for a long moment, then nodded. You're right. I'll talk to him. If he still wants a divorce after talking, well, at least I'll know I tried to make things right. She spent the night awake, thinking about what she would say to her husband, how to explain the years of silence, how to make him realize that she'd always been herself with him, just hadn't told him about her past. In the morning, she called the salon and canceled all appointments, then texted Isaac. I'll be home at 1 o'clock. Shall we talk? There was no reply, but she decided it didn't matter. They should talk, even if he wasn't ready. Isaac spent the morning in the office, mechanically going over reports and answering phones. Colleagues noticed his condition, but wrote it off as fatigue or project problems. No one could have guessed that his world had collapsed in one day. When the message from Blair came in, he stared at the screen for a long moment, not knowing what to say. Part of him wanted to never see her again. The other part of him wanted an explanation, wanted to vent all the pain and anger. In the end, he just packed up and drove home to meet her there. Blair arrived at precisely 1 o'clock in the afternoon. She looked haggard, dark circles under her eyes, her hair in a careless bun. No makeup, no jewelry except her wedding ring. Isaac was waiting for her in the living room, sitting in an armchair. On the table in front of him were the documents and photos she'd found. Hi, she said quietly, stopping in the doorway. He nodded without looking at her. I wanted to explain, Blair began, taking a step into the room. I know that no explanation is going to make things right, but I have to try. Why didn't you tell me? His voice was cold, alien. Before we were married, before I fell in love with you, why, Blair? Or should I call you Brian? She flinched at the name. I stopped being Brian long before we met, she answered quietly. That name belongs to a ghost, a person I've never really been. Don't dodge the question, Isaac interrupted her sharply. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Blair took a deep breath and sat down on the couch across from him. I was afraid, she answered honestly. When we first met, I saw the way you looked at me, as a woman, as someone you wanted to be with, and I didn't want to ruin that. And then it was too late. The longer I waited, the scarier I got to admit it. You lied to me for 5 years! Isaac shook his head. 5 years, Blair! We talked about babies! We planned a future! I know, she whispered. And it's my fault, but I've never lied about my feelings for you. I love you, Isaac. I always have. Love doesn't lie, he cut her off. Love doesn't manipulate. You use me to confirm your fantasy that you're a real woman. It's not a fantasy. There was anger in her voice for the first time. I'm a woman. I've always been a woman on the inside, just born in the wrong body. Can't you understand that? Realize what? That you're a biological male who chose to become a woman? That our marriage was a farce? That every time we made love, you deceived me? Blair jumped to his feet. Stop it. I didn't deceive you in bed. I didn't pretend when I told you I loved you. Yes, I hid a part of my past. An important part, I admit. But that doesn't mean the rest of it was a lie. Isaac stood up too. They stood across from each other, separated by a table with the evidence of deception spread out on it. "How am I supposed to believe a word you say?" he asked quietly. "How do I know what else you're hiding?" "Nothing." She took a step toward him. "I swear to you, no more secrets. Ask me anything and I'll answer honestly." Isaac backed away, not letting her get any closer. "Who else knows?" he asked. "Tyler, obviously. Who else?" "Naomi," Blair admitted. "She's a friend of mine from New York. Helped me get settled here." "Naomi?" Isaac laughed a bitter laugh. "Naomi, the medical examiner? The one who came to our barbecues? The one who looked me in the eye and smiled, knowing I was living a lie? She didn't think it was her place to get involved." Blair shook her head. "And she's right. This is between us, Isaac. Just between us." "No." He shook his head. "There's nothing between us anymore. I'm filing for divorce." The words hung in the air, heavy, final. "Please," Blair whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Give us a chance. We can go to a marriage counselor, talk about everything. I'll do anything to earn back your trust." "Trust?" Isaac grinned bitterly. "It died the moment I saw that picture. No, Blair, it's over." She burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook with sobs. Isaac stared at her and felt the anger and remnants of love struggling inside. Part of him wanted to comfort her, to hold her. The other part of him screamed that he was a stranger, a fraud, a man in women's clothing. "I'll leave," Blair finally said, wiping away the tears. "I'll pack my things and leave tonight. But please think about it again. Not about the past, but about us. About what we've had between us these past 5 years." She turned to go upstairs, but Isaac grabbed her arm. "I want to know everything," he said through gritted teeth. "Every detail of your deception, every transaction, every step. How you turned yourself into this." Blair tried to free his hand, but his grip was too strong. "Isaac, you're hurting me." "Hurt you?" He laughed. "Are you talking to me about hurting? After what you did to me?" He let go of her hand and grabbed the picture of the boy off the table. "It's you," he shouted, shaking the picture in her face. "That's the real you, not this fake I see in front of me." "Stop it!" Blair pushed his hand away from the picture. "I'm not a fake, I'm real. More real than I've ever been living as Brian." They stood face to face, breathing heavily. Rage and pain distorted their faces beyond recognition. "You stole my life," Isaac whispered. "Years I could have spent with a real woman, had children, a family. You stole it all with your lies." "I didn't steal anything," Blair replied. "I gave you love, support. I've been there for you through your toughest times. Remember when your business almost went bankrupt? Who was there for you? Who stood by you day and night?" "Shut up." "No, you will listen to me," Blair raised her voice. "I deserve at least that. Yes, I made a mistake not telling you about my past, but that doesn't change everything that happened between us. It doesn't change who I am." Isaac grabbed the vase off the table and threw it at the wall. Shards flew across the room. "I said shut up," he shouted. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You're a man who deceived me, who made me love myself. I'm not a man." Blair was yelling now too. "I was never a man. Yes, I was born in a man's body, but inside I've always been a woman. Why can't you understand that?" "Because it's bullshit." Isaac stepped toward her. "Biology doesn't lie, Brian. You can change your body, but not your DNA. You'll always be a man pretending to be a woman." Blair slapped him across the face. The sound of the slap rang through the air. "Don't you dare call me that name," she hissed. "Not ever. Not again. Don't you dare." Isaac grabbed her by the shoulders and shook her hard. "You have no right to tell me what to do. Not after all those lies." She tried to break free, but he was stronger. Uncontrollable rage splashed in his eyes. "Let me go." Blair tried to push him away. "You're hurting me." "Hurt? You want to know what real pain is?" Isaac growled. "It's when the person you trusted the most turns out to be a liar. When your whole life turns out to be built on lies." His hands clenched tighter and tighter. Blair began to choke. "Isaac, please!" She wheezed. But he couldn't hear anymore. A fog of rage was in front of his eyes. In one swift motion, he shoved her, and Blair's head hit the corner of the mantelpiece, losing his balance. There was a thud. She fell to the floor, blood pouring from the wound on her temple. "Blair?" Isaac suddenly awoke from his madness. "Blair!" He knelt down beside her, turning her body over. Her eyes were open, but her gaze was already frozen, staring into nothing. Frantically fumbling for a pulse on her neck, he found none. "No, no, no," Isaac mumbled, shaking her by the shoulders. "Blair, wake up, please." But she didn't answer. The blood from the wound on her temple continued to flow slowly, forming a dark puddle on the light-colored carpet. Isaac stared at his wife's motionless body, and the reality of what was happening slowly crept into his mind. He had killed her, killed Blair. In a fit of blind rage, taken the life of the person he loved despite everything. Panic came over him in a wave. What do we do now? Call the police? Confess? He looked at his hands, stained with her blood, at the vase shards strewn across the room, the signs of a struggle. Everything pointed to him. It wasn't an accident. It was murder. Isaac rose to his feet, trying to gather his thoughts. He had to do something. Cover his tracks. Get rid of the body. Run. With trembling hands, he pulled out his cell phone and dialed the number of his business partner. "Jerome? It's me. Listen, I need to cancel tomorrow's meeting. Yeah, and next week too. There's a family emergency and Blair and I need to get away immediately." When he finished talking, he looked around. His mind was working feverishly, formulating a plan. First, clean up the blood in the house, then get rid of the body, and create the illusion that Blair had simply left, determined to start a new life somewhere else. He headed to the pantry for cleaning supplies and plastic bags, trying not to look at his wife's body lying in the middle of the living room. But the image of her open, lifeless eyes haunted him wherever he went. The phone call woke Detective Leonard Bishop at 6 in the morning. He barely cracked his eyes open and reached for the ringing machine. A call this early did not bode well. "Bishop," he said hoarsely. "Detective, this is Officer Ramirez. We got a body in Glenwood Park. Female, approximately 30 to 35 years old. Presumed homicide." Bishop sat up on the bed, finally shaking off sleep. "Anything on the identity?" "No ID, but she's wearing expensive clothes and jewelry. Doesn't look like a robbery. Body was discovered by a morning jogger around 5:30. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Bishop ended the call and stood up heavily. This was his first serious case since his transfer to Stonington 6 months ago. The town of 24,000 people rarely dealt with violent crime, and the detective was beginning to think the transfer had been a mistake. After 15 years in Baltimore's homicide division, he felt like a race car on a country road, too powerful for such simple tasks. Glenwood Park was located on the outskirts of the city. When Bishop arrived, the crime scene had already been cordoned off. Several patrol cars with flashers cast blue and red glare on the grass wet with morning dew. The medical examiner bent over a body covered by a white sheet. "Good morning, Doctor." "Wells," Bishop said, stepping closer. Naomi Wells looked up and nodded. Her dark, latex-gloved hands were methodically examining the body. "Detective, I'm afraid it's not such a good morning for our victim." She pulled back the sheet, exposing the victim's face. Bishop saw a young black woman with delicate features. Death had not yet erased the traces of beauty from her face. "What have we got?" he asked, squatting down beside the body. "Head trauma," Naomi pointed to the wound on her temple. "A hard blow against a hard object with a sharp angle. But that's not cause of death. Death by strangulation. See the marks on the neck? Time of death was sometime between 19 and 22 last night. The body was moved post-mortem, judging by the nature of the cadaver stains. So it wasn't killed here." Bishop looked around. "Dumped like garbage. But they were careful," Naomi added. "Body's clean, clothes are in order, no signs of sexual assault, and something else interesting. There were signs of struggle on her hands." She struggled. Bishop took a close look at the body. Fancy pantsuit, expensive shoes, manicured hands, a diamond engagement ring on her ring finger. "Married," he noted, "and judging by the ring, not poor." "It's Blair Turner," came a voice behind him. Bishop turned around. Officer Ramirez was standing next to a tall black man who looked distressed. "Do you know her?" the detective asked, rising. "Yes," the man replied. "She's my best friend. She didn't show up for our meeting last night and didn't answer her cell phone. I've been trying to find her all night." Bishop noticed Naomi tense up at the sight of the man. "What's your name?" Tyler Morris. I've been friends with Blair for years. Yet, I can't believe this is happening. Minus Mr. Morris, I need to ask you a few questions. Would you— Leonard. Naomi interrupted him, rising from her knees. I know this woman, Blair Turner, 33. She owns a hair studio downtown, married to Isaac Turner, a building contractor. Bishop looked at the medical examiner in surprise. You know her? We, knew her, Naomi said evasively. Not intimately, but I knew her. I need to notify my husband, Bishop said. Minus Mr. Morris, do you have his contacts? Tyler nodded, pulling out his cell phone. Can I come with you? He asked. Isaac, it's going to be hard on him. Bishop hesitated. There was something odd about the situation. The tension between Naomi and Tyler, their apparent familiarity with the victim. But that wasn't uncommon in a small town. Everyone knew each other. Okay, he finally agreed. Let's go to Mr. Turner's. The Turner house looked immaculate, a Victorian mansion with a manicured lawn and neat flower beds. There was nothing to suggest that a murder might have taken place here, but his gut told Bishop to take a closer look. Tyler rang the doorbell. Nothing happened for a long time. Then they heard footsteps, and the door opened. Isaac Turner stood on the doorstep, a tall, stout man with tired red eyes. Tyler? He looked at his friend in surprise, then shifted his gaze to Bishop. What's going on? Minus Mr. Turner, I'm Detective Leonard Bishop. Bishop introduced himself, showing his badge. May I come in? I have some bad news. Isaac turned pale, but stepped back, allowing them into the house. In the living room, Bishop noticed the signs of recent cleaning, the overpowering smell of cleaning products, the perfect order, as if someone had endeavored to destroy all traces of his presence. Minus Mr. Turner, Bishop began as they sat down. I'm sorry, but the body of your wife, Blair Turner, was found in Glenwood Park this morning. She's dead. Isaac froze, staring unblinkingly at the detective. Then his face contorted in pain, and he covered his face with his hands. No, he moaned. This can't be. We had a fight yesterday, and she left. I thought she was at Tyler's. Tyler put a hand on his shoulder. She didn't come to see me, Isaac. I called you last night, but you didn't answer. Bishop watched Turner's reaction carefully. The grief looked genuine, but there was something else in his eyes. Fear? Guilt? Minus Mr. Turner, when was the last time you saw your wife? Isaac wiped his eyes and took a deep breath. Yesterday afternoon, we had a difficult conversation. She said she was leaving, and I let her go. His voice shook. If only I'd known. If I'd stopped her. What was your conversation about? Bishop asked softly. Isaac cast a quick glance at Tyler, then lowered his eyes. Personal stuff, family issues. Minus Mr. Turner, I know this is a difficult moment, but I need to know all the details. Any information can help me find whoever did this to your wife. Isaac clenched his fists. I found out that she kept important information about her past from me. We had a fight. I was furious, told her to leave. She packed up and left. I thought she went to Tyler's like she always does. What information was she hiding? Bishop asked. Does it matter? Isaac replied sharply. Everything matters in a murder investigation, Mr. Turner. Tyler cleared his throat. Detective, perhaps now is not the best time for such questions. Isaac had just learned of his wife's death. Bishop looked at Tyler carefully. He was clearly trying to hide something. All right, the detective conceded. Minus Mr. Turner, where were you last night between 19 and 22 o'clock? Here at home, Isaac answered. After our fight, I had a drink and went to bed. I was a wreck. Can anyone confirm that? No, I was alone, Isaac shook his head. You don't think I'm just gathering information, Mr. Turner, Bishop reassured him. Standard procedure. I'm gonna need to see the house. Why? Isaac sounded panicked. Maybe your wife came back here last night and you didn't notice. Or maybe she left some kind of note telling you where she was going. Isaac nodded reluctantly. Good. Do what you need to do. While Bishop looked around the house, especially scrutinizing the living room, Tyler spoke quietly to Isaac. The detective caught scraps of their conversation. No one will know. Stick to your version. In the living room, despite its perfect cleanliness, Bishop noticed several disturbing details. the absence of a vase on the table, though a circular mark was left on the stand, a slight darkening on the light-colored rug near the fireplace, as if it had recently been scrubbed of a stain. And most importantly, a broken framed photograph, shoved between the sofa cushions, as if someone had tried to hide it. He carefully pulled out the photo. It was of a dark-skinned boy about 13 years old, with the words, "Our son, Brian," written on the back. Bishop tucked the photo into his pocket and turned back to Isaac and Tyler. "Minus Mr. Turner, I need you to come to the morgue to formally identify the body. And I'll also need a list of your wife's acquaintances, people she may have had conflicts with." Isaac nodded, looking utterly defeated. "Of course, anything to find whoever did this to Blair." Leaving the Turner house, Bishop immediately called Naomi Wells. "Doctor, I need to talk to you, alone and off the record." An hour later, they met at a small cafe on the edge of town. "You knew Blair Turner better than you said you did," Bishop began without preamble. "And you tensed up when you saw Tyler Morris. What's going on, Naomi?" Naomi stared into her coffee cup for a long moment, then looked up. "What I'm going to say has to stay between us, at least for now. I'm listening." "Blair Turner was a transgender woman," Naomi said quietly. "She had transitioned about 7 years ago before she moved to Staunton. I knew her from New York, helped her with medical issues." Bishop raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Did her husband know?" "No," Naomi shook her head. "As far as I know, she never told him. She was afraid of his reaction. Isaac, he's pretty conservative about these things." "And Tyler?" Tyler knew. He was her best friend and support during the transition. Bishop pulled out the photo he'd found and placed it on the table. "Is that her? Before the transition?" Naomi looked at the photo and nodded. "Yes, that's Blair when she was still Brian. Where did you find this?" "At the Turner house, hidden in the couch." Bishop tapped his fingers on the table thoughtfully. "Do you think Isaac might have found out the truth?" "If so, that could be a motive," Naomi said quietly. "Isaac is a man with strong prejudices. Such a revelation could have caused him to have a inappropriate reaction." "We should talk to Tyler," Bishop decided. "Find out what he knows." Tyler agreed to meet at the police station. He seemed nervous, kept twirling his water cup. "Minus Mr. Morris," Bishop began, "I know about Blair, that she was a transgender woman, and about the fact that her husband may have recently found out about it." Tyler flinched. "Who told you that?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that you may be withholding information that could help find the killer." Tyler lowered his gaze. "I didn't want this to get out. Blair deserves respect even after he's dead. I don't want her to be remembered as that Tranny." "I understand your feelings," Bishop said softly. "But if Isaac found out the truth and it led to conflict—" "2 days ago, Isaac found some old photos and documents of Blair," Tyler admitted. "She came to me in tears, saying that he was furious. I advised her not to come back, but yesterday she decided to talk to him, to try to explain. Said she had to try and save their marriage." "And you never saw her again?" "Noon too. She was supposed to come to me after she talked to Isaac, but she didn't. I called her, then Isaac, but no one answered. I started calling hospitals this morning, and then I saw the news about the body in the park." Bishop made notes in his notebook. "Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Morris. I'll need to talk to Mr. Turner again." Back at the Turner house with the search warrant, Bishop and the forensics team thoroughly searched every corner. In the garage, they found traces of blood on the floor that someone had tried to wash off. In the trash can, they found a broken vase with blood on it. And in the trunk of Isaac's car, microscopic traces of hair and fabric that matched Blair's clothes. When the forensics team finished collecting evidence, Bishop called Isaac into the station, "Minus Mr. Turner," he began as they sat down in the interrogation room. "I have to tell you that we have good reason to believe that you were involved in your wife's death." Isaac tensed, but maintained his outward composure. "This is ridiculous. I loved Blair. Even after you found out she was born a man?" Bishop placed Brian's picture on the table. Isaac's face contorted. "She deceived me for 5 years, made me love this." He pointed at the photo in disgust. "But I didn't kill her. We have Tyler Morris's testimony that you were furious when you found out the truth. There's blood in your garage and on the broken vase, traces in the trunk of your car, and most importantly, The struggle marks on Blair's hands matched the scratches on yours. Isaac remained silent, staring at the table. "What happened, Isaac?" Bishop asked softly. "She came over to talk. Did you two have an argument? Was it an accident?" "She lied to me," Isaac said quietly at last. "All these years, every day, every night in our bed. Can you imagine what that would be like? To find out that the woman you loved, the woman you thought was your wife, was actually—" He didn't finish the sentence. "That doesn't justify killing her," Bishop said. "I didn't mean to kill her." Isaac looked up, his eyes full of tears. "We were yelling at each other. She hit me. I pushed her, and she fell, hitting her head on the fireplace. I tried to help, but she wasn't breathing." His voice trailed off. "I panicked. I didn't know what to do." "Is that why you decided to dispose of the body and fake a disappearance?" Isaac nodded, covering his face with his hands. "I wasn't myself. Just wanted it all to be over, so no one would ever know I was living with a transgender." Bishop stared silently at the broken man in front of him. Isaac Turner, a successful businessman, a respected member of society, had become a murderer in an instant because of fear, misunderstanding, and anger. "Isaac Turner, you are under arrest for the murder of Blair Turner," Bishop said formally. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." As Isaac was led away, Bishop was alone in the interrogation room. He looked at the picture of young Brian and thought of Blair, the woman who had wanted so desperately to be herself that she had risked everything, even her life. The next day, he met with Naomi and Tyler at the medical examiner's office. "Blair's body will be turned over to you to make funeral arrangements," he told Tyler. Isaac confessed to the murder. It was an accident during an argument, but he tried to cover up the crime, which adds to his guilt. "What's going to happen next?" Tyler asked. "The trial," replied Bishop. "But given his confession and the circumstances, he'll probably get 8 to 15 years. "And the truth about Blair? Would it come out?" Naomi asked quietly. Bishop thought for a moment. "The report will indicate the cause of the conflict, but I'll make sure she's treated with respect. She deserves it." Tyler nodded, wiping away tears. "Thank you, Detective." Blair had always been afraid that the truth would ruin her life. She couldn't imagine that the truth would take her life away from her. "The saddest part," Bishop observed, "is that in another situation with another person, that truth might have been accepted with understanding. But fear and prejudice are too often stronger than love." Stepping outside, Bishop looked up at the cloudless sky over Staunton, a small town where everyone knows each other, but no one really knows their neighbors, where secrets are kept behind perfect house fronts and prejudice masquerades as traditional values, and where one photo with a caption can be a verdict.